Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GDI Consulting's webinar on the U.S. Marine Corps Professional Services Support Services for the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory Futures Division bid. This is being called the eBOSS 2 bid. My name is Larry Weiss, and I am the Senior Business Development Manager at GDI Consulting. I'm also joined with Ab Van, who heads our Capture and Proposal Development Department. Ab will actually be going into the details of this U.S. Marine Corps RFP. Just some administrative notes. If this is the first time you're attending one of our webinars, you'll see that it is being recorded, and the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. And there'll be a Q&A session at the end, but you can send your questions during the webinar to the chat system to the right of your window. And if this is the first time you're attending one of the webinars, you'll see the blue file tab, and there's a blue download file button that you can actually download the presentation slides itself. Chat is at the bottom right-hand side panel, which you can use to send your questions. If you click on the red button with the 3 dots to your right, it enlarges your screen and hides the side panel. And when you want to go back to chat or download the presentation, you can click on the red buttons with 3 dots on the right to expand the side panel. If you do get reconnected, there's a reconnect button on the top of the screen. Okay, let me tell you just a little bit about GDI Consulting. You can read this. Our business is helping government contractors win procurements. We've had terrific growth. Our success rate is 81%. We're pretty selective on what procurements we get involved with. We've had terrific wins in 2018. That's over $6.2 billion. And we have a lot of experience. When you see, or when you hear and see how AB goes through this particular procurement, you'll see that we have pretty in-depth knowledge of what the government is asking for and how to respond to it. Again, the main thing is, we all know the government loves competition and they love to have a big party where everybody shows up, but you don't get paid for submitting proposals. We get paid for winning them, and that's what we want to help you do. So again, references, follow up. I think you'll enjoy the presentation. And again, you'll be able to download it, and we'll have our contact information at the end of the presentation. So just one other thing, by the way, just before I forget, you can see these are some of the consulting engagements we've had that were won. That's resulted in big contracts. And you can see there's a lot of DOD here, Army, Navy, Air Force, the DISA, civilian agencies as well. But we do have a lot of DOD experience in winning, both IDIQs and single awards. So, Ab, I guess you can take it over from here.
Okay, hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Ab Van. I head our Capture and Proposal Development Department, and I'm going to go through today's eBOSS presentation. Just a short note on the outline of the webinar. We're going to look at the focus of this RFP, what its highlights are, its scope. We'll go over one of the previous contracts that is very similar and the incumbent. Then we'll dive into the proposal structure, the evaluation criteria. One important factor is partnering, so we wanted to discuss that as well, and then go into the win strategy that we propose, and finally we'll get to the question and answer period. During the webinar, if you have any questions, just put them on the chat, and we'll start reading off of them at the end at the Q&A session. So feel free to ask your questions as we go on through the chat system. Okay, the focus of this is a single award contract, and it's essentially to provide subject matter expertise for analysis and technical knowledge, provision of technical knowledge to include application thereof and administrative services to the Marine Corps. This is for the Warfighting Laboratory Futures Directorate. So it's directly towards the Warfighting Laboratory. So you're essentially providing a sort of a staffing and management and administrative personnel to them. Okay, here are the highlights of this project. The title is obviously USMC Professional Support Services for the Marine Corps Warfighting Laboratory Future Division. Solicitation number is there, so you can refer to it later on. Agency is the Warfighting Laboratory from the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, some of the important dates. Actually, when we started advertising this webinar, the RFP had not dropped, but now the RFP is out, the full RFP is out, and we have a proposal due date that is not far from us. So the draft RFP was actually issued on 21st of August. Then they held a solicitation conference, and a number of us participated on it. I think a number of our clients also participated. 5th of September 2019 was the case. The full RFP dropped last week on the 19th, and we have until the 5th of November to actually submit our proposals. And then there's a question cutoff date at 10th of October. So if you have any questions, you need to get them in before the 10th. So these are the important dates that you need to know about. Okay, this is, as you know, 100% set aside for small businesses. You must be small under the NAICS code of 541611, which is $15 million. Actually, with the new classifications, it's now 16.5 instead of $15 million. So you need to be small under that. And it's a single award contract. It's estimated to be $68 million over the period, which the period of performance is essentially 5 years, 1 base year and 4 option years. And place of performance is essentially in Virginia, but there are also other camps that they have mentioned in the RFP, but essentially it's in Quantico, Virginia. Now, there is a special requirement, and that's the security classification. Your company needs to have top secret facility clearance at the time of proposal submission, not at the time of award. In fact, you have to fill out that form DD-24554 and submit it with the proposal. So you must have top secret facility clearance to be able to participate in this RFP. Now, if you want to be a sub, that's a different story, but the prime must have a top secret FCL. The scope of this of the services that you provide are essentially business administration support services, operations support services, experimentation support services. Experiments are a lot of the tasks that this office does, so that's one of the things that most of the work will be focused on. Experiment division field support, HQ, the headquarters of Marine Corps Command Liaison Support, concepts and plans analysis, concepts and plans planning, and experiment division opposition force support. This is one of the other aspects of the experiment division. So these are essentially the scope of the subject matter expertise that you will provide to the government. Let's look at one of the previous contracts. It was called Engineering Analytical Services. It was awarded on 2012, and it finished on 2015, 3 years. $27 million was obligated, and it was given to an 8A company, Gentech Partners Joint Venture. This was very similar to this project, but this project is obviously much more it's a broader type of work compared to that previous one, and more of the different offices inside the laboratory, inside the warfighting laboratory, are going to take part of it and use the staff. So what we are bidding for now is fairly more complex. But you can see the way money was obligated to Gentech Partners joint venture during these 5 years that the contract was actually being performed. Okay, let's look at the proposal volume structure now, because that's essentially, now that the RFP has dropped, less on the capture and more on the proposal development we should concentrate on. So it has essentially 4 volumes, and they're considered 4 factors. Factors 1, 2, 3, 4. Technical capabilities with the page limitation of 40 pages, management approach 25 pages, past performance 9 pages, and then cost and price, which there's no page limitation obviously for that. Let's go in more details about what they are asking under each of these volumes. Volume 1, factor 1 is technical capabilities, 40 pages. We need to cover the proposed technical approach based on the PWS requirements. And here we need to discuss our capability on handling, assessing, and documenting experimentation of innovation, new emerging technologies as it relates to the Marine Corps ground task, and command liaison support. So here we really need to show experience on the type of work that they are going to ask us for. We also need to provide our approach to integrating the capabilities of our SMEs to meet or exceed the PWS requirements. So we have to have their capabilities and cross-reference that with the PWS requirements. This is a very important part of the narrative that we need to provide, cross-referencing the SME capabilities with the PWS requirements. We also need to discuss the suitability of our staff to meet the PWS requirements. We also have to explain and give a breakout of the labor mix and the hours we think is needed. And finally, we have to provide resumes of the key personnel, 6 main personnel and 2 optional, or altogether 8 key personnel. Note that all the key personnel must have TS clearance with SCI eligibility. So TS clearance is a must, and we need to provide proof for that as well with the proposal. So the selection of the 8 key personnel is very important. Of course, the same key personnel should be cross-referenced also on where we discuss the approach to integrating the capabilities of the SMEs to meet or exceed the PWS requirements. So this is an important factor, and we'll get to the evaluation factors later on, but this is the most important factor in the proposal, and we should pay as much attention to this as is possible. Volume 2 is factor 2, management approach. We have 25 pages, and here we need to give a narrative on our ability, our understanding, and our experience with regards to similar projects and planned resources to manage the requirements of this project's PWS. We need to provide corporate experience and what the management structure we're going to put in place. Also, if we are having teaming, subs, or if it's a JV, whatever, we need to explain that, what benefits our teaming is bringing to the table. And teaming is very important because we want to make sure that we are strong enough to be able to perform. I mean, we need to prove that to the government. So teaming is very important, especially since this is a small business. We are recommending, and we'll get to partnering later on, but we are recommending to companies to bring in large businesses in their teams to provide that ability and give that confidence to the government. We also need to mention our staffing approach, which is essentially recruiting, training, and retaining the staff that we're going to provide to the government. So staffing approach is important. And then finally, the quality control plan. We need to provide that, and the quality control plan doesn't go into that 25-page count. It's an attachment which is separate from the 25-page limit. But it is an important factor in the evaluation of factor 2. Okay, factor 3 or volume 3, factor 3 is past performance. We have 9 pages for that. We're supposed to provide a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 contracts that are both recent and relevant. Now note that a maximum of 2 contracts can also have been performed as a sub. So as a small business, if you've performed projects as a sub that are similar and relevant, you can use those, but they can't be more than 2. So out of the maximum 6, only 2 of them can be a sub. The rest, you must have been prime on them. Now, I said recent and relevant. Now, recent means that they need to have been performed within the last 4 years. If they're either they have been completed within the last 4 years, or they might be ongoing. If they're ongoing, then you need to have at least 6 months of performance. So you can't use a project that you got yesterday or 2 months ago. It needs to have at least 6 months of performance, and that's from the date of the RFP issuance, which is 19th September 2019. As far as relevancy is concerned, they're looking for size, scope, and complexity of the projects to be considered relevant. Now, note that the contracts must demonstrate experience conducting and evaluating field and live experiments. This they're focused on. So the contracts that you choose, and I should say that you can bring in subs and use their past performance. This is important. So the contracts that you use, either from yourself, your own contracts, or your subs, they must focus, or they might show that you've been, you have experience in conducting and evaluating field and live experiments. This is a crucial factor in their evaluation. And lastly, volume 4, factor 4, which is the cost and price. Now, it includes a summary sheet. It also includes the price proposal in the MS Excel format, which you have to provide with the proposal. And there's no need for certified cost or price data. They don't need that, so you're not supposed to provide that. But however, they have mentioned that it's a all or none requirement. In other words, you can't give pricing on some CLINs and leave the rest empty. So you have to provide pricing on all CLINs. And do note that your company must have an approved accounting system in place. This is a requirement because the contract has 3 types of CLINs, firm fixed price CLINs, T&M, and requirement contracts. So the second type, in other words, the T&M, for that, there's a requirement that you need to have approved accounting system. So that's something you need to consider. Now, let's go over the evaluation procedures. It's a pretty simple best value evaluation process. And we've listed in descending order the importance of the different factors. As you can see, factors 1, 2, 3, 4 are actually in the descending order of importance. So as I mentioned earlier, technical capability, and then after that, management approach we are considering them the most important, and you should put as much energy and focus on those. Of course, past performance is also important because excuse me, because if an offeror's past performance gives either a low expectation or no expectation that the offeror will be able to successfully perform the required effort, in other words, you don't have the proper past performance, they're going to put you away, put your proposal aside. So it's important to have the proper past performance. But essentially, the three factors, 1, 2, 3, which are the non-price factors, by themselves and combined are significantly more important than factor 4 price. So they're not looking for, lowest price or anything like that. You really need to work on the proposal itself and give them quality. Okay, let's also discuss a little bit about partnering because it's important. For small businesses, in other words, for primes who are going after this, creating a strong team gives the government a confidence that you have the ability to perform. So it's really important to have a team in place to give that confidence and show them. This strengthens your score on volume 1 and 2 by using strong subs, and primarily if you can provide large companies that would with a very strong past performance and capabilities, that will strengthen your position. Also, if you have gaps as far as past performance is concerned, and you want to make sure that you have a very strong past performance, for example, you might have only 2 or 3 contracts that are relevant and recent, then you can bring in subs and fill in that gap as well and bring in contracts from your subs. For large businesses, well, as this is a small business set aside, they can use this and become subs to small businesses and leverage their past performance capabilities and experience. Also note that since this is the prime must have a TS facility clearance, the subs must also be able to have that. It's not a requirement, at least it doesn't seem to be a requirement at this point when you're submitting the proposal. But if your sub does have a facility clearance, then obviously its execution of the project will be much smoother. If your sub does not have a facility clearance, then obviously getting personnel from your sub, because all the personnel on this project need to have TS clearance. Now, when a sub doesn't have a facility clearance itself, then they have to go through the process of requesting that, and it will delay. So the government is going to look at this, and if you provide a sub that already has a facility clearance, that's a plus. So large businesses who have TS facility clearance do have an advantage over other subs in this respect. As I said, only right now for proposal submission, only the prime has to have a TS facility clearance and also SCI eligibility. But essentially, when the sub wants to operate, if you get the contract, they need to get that before they can actually provide personnel with clearance. Okay, and lastly, I wanted to go over the win strategy that we are proposing. We think that a gap analysis on volumes 1 and 3 is very important to understand what your capabilities are. I haven't put in doing a black hat here, but really and essentially, companies should do a black hat as far as what their competitors are going to do, because this is a single award. So that's also an important thing. If you don't have a TS facility clearance, you cannot be a prime, and you have to go into the being a sub path. So that's something that should be considered right at the beginning. Now, assuming that you do have that, you have the TS facility clearance, then you have to decide on your partnering strategy. We are recommending as many subs as possible to cover your gaps, both in volume 1 and 2 and in volume 3. So we are suggesting that all companies should go for 6 projects, And if you have gaps there, for example, you can bring in subs. Also, you can bring in subs and provide a stronger position both on volume 1 and volume 2, which is the management, by leveraging the experience and capabilities of your subs. One other point is the page limitations for these volumes is very tight, so you really need to be concise, but have strong proof points when you're, explaining your capabilities and management, both technical experience and technical capabilities in the management section as well. Now, you need to have at least, this is our recommendation, 1 or 2 SMEs who can write towards volume 1 and 2 specifically. Now, I do want to mention one thing. Many companies bring in former generals who have worked in the particular office or agency that they're targeting. This is the usual way of doing it. In fact, many generals are already working in private sector, in government contractors. But I do want to say, per our experience, that sometimes I'm not negating having the use of these generals, which is very important because they know the overall requirements, but they are not evaluators. Evaluators are a different breed. So what we usually suggest to our clients is to actually reach out and find former evaluators, former contracting officers, or former analysts who were involved in working on proposals, reviewing them. They have a different perspective compared to the generals and the higher hierarchy in these government offices, because those higher people usually read the reports that are created by the evaluators. They don't start reading the entire proposal, whereas the evaluators are the ones that are going to read the entire proposal and score it and then provide their report to the generals. So it's really important to have those SMEs in that level, in the level of evaluators. And that's what we're recommending, that you should have 1 or 2 if you can to help you. And here, getting outside help is very important. We are recommending that you augment your team with these qualified SMEs. And when I say SMEs, I mean not specifically technical SMEs as far as the job itself, but people who have the inside knowledge of how the evaluation is done. Also, outsourcing proposal writing talent if you don't think that your internal team is strong enough for this, or if you have a strong team, proposal team, getting it reviewed by an independent body to have a second set of eyes review your proposal. So these are the main themes of the strategy. I guess here Larry can take over from the services that we can provide.
Okay, thank you, Ab. You can see that Ab, and we've done this kind of thing before, we can certainly help with the full proposal development. As I say, if your own proposal team needs extra support, which even bigger companies do sometimes, to supplement, we can do the capturing, we can help set up the partnering and the full proposal development. When we talk about black hat or other types of reviews, reviewing and auditing, sometimes just a different set of eyes, is really helpful. And I've been with bigger companies, and sometimes we come in, we see things that even their own people don't. Again, the staff augmentation, we can provide technical subject matter experts. One thing, if you've ever dealt with the Marine Corps, they really are kind of inbred. They really like other people that have worked in the Marine Corps in this particular command. I, by the way, attended the pre-bidders conference at Quantico last month for this particular procurement. Believe me, there were plenty of former Marines. Again, proposal manager, capture manager, depending on what you need, these are the services that we that's what we do. Again, before we get into questions, for follow-ups and what ifs and things like that, I'm in the Washington area. I'm the business development manager, and Ab is our VP of capture. So let me, before I just open it up to questions, let me just go through a couple of the questions that have come in on the chat line. First of all, there were some questions on the bottom that I think I could answer, like, let's see, how can a small business acquire the security clearance? How do you get top secret clearance? We don't have a top secret clearance now. Okay, when you deal with the government, Defense Security Service, which has now taken over a lot of the clearances, not just for DoD, but almost the whole government, it does take time. If you don't have a facility clearance now, if you don't have a top secret clearance, and this bid is
so as Larry was saying, if you don't have a top secret clearance now, facility clearance, it's too late, to be honest, because it takes time to get that facility clearance. So you should not try going after this as a prime. You can still go as a sub, and once you get the contract as the prime can actually take you over and get that facility clearance because they have it, and it is a process, but essentially you will be able to do it. So you can get the facility clearance through the sub. Of course, you have to be prepared to go through the checks and everything so that you really do have a top secret facility clearance. Okay, a number of questions about these facility clearances. Okay, we have answered those. Did you say that we can have a large as a sub and still qualify a small business set aside? Yes. In fact, there is a requirement, there's a FAR that you can't give the entire job to a large business. But as far as getting this contract is concerned, yes, you can bring in subs that are large, and you as the small business will be the prime, but you still have to have facility clearance, top secret facility clearance. But as I said, large businesses can be your subs as well. Another question is, how many past performance must the prime sub have? 3, or can it be 1 past performance prime and 2 past performance subs? This was one of the questions posed to the government, and they said a minimum of 1 past performance must come from the prime. So yes, if you're going for the minimum 3, 1 can be from the prime and 2 can be from the subs. If you go for the 6, you can still have 1 from the prime and 5 from the subs. So that's the minimum, 1 from the prime. If large companies are required for strengthening contract award, how is the solicitation geared towards small businesses? Well, the prime must be small business, but obviously when the government is reviewing your proposal and you have a team of, say, 4 very strong subcontractors who are large businesses and with very established and experienced teams, and compare that with a small business that does have facility clearance but it's going solo, obviously the company that is providing teaming will have a better advantage. So, and since this is a single award contract, you should use every bit of advantage to get the contract. So having a strong team is really important, and you should really look for partners to strengthen your stance in all volumes as far as experience, as far as management, and as far as past performance is concerned. Are letters of commitment or letters of intent required? They have mentioned that, but they've asked just for resumes. But perhaps providing that as well. There's an attachment that you provide the key personnel resumes. You don't need to have resumes of all the personnel that you need. There are around 90 or so personnel that are required. You don't need all of that, the resumes for them, just key personnel. But if you do have letters of commitment or intent, adding those doesn't hurt, because that's not part of the page count, the good thing about it. Okay. A number of companies have said that they would like to have B subs. I should mention that one of the services that we provide to all our clients and everybody who participates in our webinars is to put hands in hands. In other words, if you're a prime looking for subs, or if you're a sub looking for a prime, just let us know, email us, and we will just connect you together. So that's one of the services we provide. It's free. We just email both of you and put you in connection with each other. What is the time frame to achieve a facility clearance? As I mentioned, and Larry was explaining before he was cut off, it is a long process, and you need somebody to actually promote you, and you can't do it by yourself. It's a sort of a chicken and egg system. So you really need to have a another prime, actually help you on that. So one of the ways of doing this is actually to get one of these projects as a sub, and usually during the process you can actually get your facility clearance through the prime who already has it. Being a small business, how do we connect with a prime? As I said, we do have that service. We can, if you let us know, we can put you in contact, and of course, your own network, trying to find who wants to participate in this. Would you recommend a small business with no experience to go in as a sub? What are their best chances? Well, they might want to do it, but obviously the primes are not going to accept a company without any experience, because what is it for them if in bringing you as a team member if you don't have any experience? Obviously, primes are going to look for subs who will strengthen either volume 1, 2, or 3, or actually in the performance. In volume 1 means experience doing this kind of work, capabilities. Volume 2 is essentially management, so you have to have something in the management, have a say. And volume 3 is past performance, so you need to have performed something in this area. So if you don't have any of these, you might want to do it, but the primes will not accept. So for small businesses that do not have this experience, I doubt that it would be a good way of actually going after a bid. This is not the bid that you should go after. Does the small business have to do at least 51% of the project? Yes. Per the FAR clause, you can't bring in subs, especially large businesses, and then give them all the work. So FAR is against that, and you cannot do that. Another question, if we have 6 to 8 past performance references on test and experimentation for Marine Corps and other agencies, but all of past performance is as a sub, does this preclude us from being a prime? No. A few points about that. First, what precludes you from being a prime is not having a security clearance. So that's a mandatory thing. Other than that, it's a business decision. Now, you can be assuming that you do have a top secret facility clearance, and you have 2 good projects that you have performed in test and experimentation for the Marine Corps as a sub. Okay, so you will be the prime, and then you will bring in subs who have that project done as prime, 1 or 2 of them. So because you have to have a minimum of 3, you have 2 at hand, and then you can bring in subs that can get you to the minimum of 3, and the more the better. We are suggesting having as many subs as possible to have it up to 6. So to come back to your question, if you have 2 projects, relevant and recent and everything, but as a sub, by all means, use them, and then use subs to fill in the gaps for the minimum 3 and up to 6. There are some questions with regards to our services, what is cost and all that. You can write us, email Larry or me, and we can discuss what your needs are and go from there. Okay, that's about the questions that are written. Some are emailed already to me. Can we use past performance from subcontractors? I think I answered that. Can we use a large subcontractor? I think I answered that too. Yes, you can use multiple subcontractors. In fact, all of them can be large, or they can be a combination. Of course, at least 51% of the job must be done by you, or at least cannot be done by a large subcontractor. Another question, are there limitations on the number of subs? As far as the RFP is concerned, no, there are no limitations. So you can have you can have no sub, 1 sub, or 20 subs. There is no limitation. Obviously, there is a balance. Having 20 subs is not a good idea as far as the government is concerned, because the management of 20 subs in the actual performance of the contract is by itself a feat. And the government looks down at that as a minus sign. But obviously having a relative and reasonable number of subs who are strong is a plus. And that's why we are recommending that everybody try to find proper subs to fill in the gaps and also provide a strong stance to the government. Okay, I think we've reached the end of the questions.
Yeah, this is Larry. One quick thing. When I was at the bidders conference, there were some verbal questions and answers there. The one thing that I would also suggest is that you talk very strongly about your recruiting capabilities, because they're very concerned that we have these TS people on contract and then they leave to go to a different company, and what do you do to replace them? And so they're really looking for rock stars as far as that goes. And they're also talking about people that are comfortable briefing 4-star generals and people doing grunt work. So, they want the moon, the sun, and the stars. So, make your proposal strong.
Exactly. I mean, contractor retention capabilities is recruiting, training, and retention are the 3 factors that in these types of staffing projects is really important for the government. So you really need to have, your proposal need to shine in this area, so to give them confidence on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're done, Larry.
All right. Well, thank you very much to everybody from attending. We hope to hear from you, and either on this or other procurements that you might be looking at. And I'll respond quickly with any questions or concerns. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on our future webinars as well. Thank you. Have a good day.